I had been kind of getting back into my faith walk. I think that simple concept of Oikos, it forced me to look around and realize I didn't really have much of one, and the one that I did have around me probably wasn't the best. Used the card, used the principles, and kind of mapped out who in my life God was wanting me to focus on, and went after those people.
Yeah, and one of them was Jim.
Yeah. So we invited him to the Christmas Eve service in 2021. Even having known him for 12 years at that point, it was still nerve-wracking because all of a sudden your work life and your reputation at work is gonna merge with your spiritual life, right? Yeah. And you wanna make sure those two people are the same people, so.
John invited us to the Christmas service in December, and you know, I brought my wife and my daughter, and we had gone to Christmas services before with other family, and we really enjoyed it. We felt at home. We enjoyed just being invited into the church, and it was just a phenomenal service. And you know, my wife and I talked about it, and we were like, that's a really nice church, really liked it. And I was dealing with some other issues at that time that just was creating a lot of stress on my family. Typically I would be a strong person and say, you know, I can figure this out on my own, and I can solve all these issues and these problems. And as things got worse, and my wife and I had COVID in January after that service, we decided to, I was walking through the house one day and I just felt this overwhelming need. I was like, hey, I just want to go back to church. And I got baptized again, and it allowed me to continue my journey with my brother here, Devin. He was also part of me applying that Oikos principle that I wanted to apply, that John applied to this whole idea of our family and bringing those people close to us. And as our relationship was already strong, I just continued to pray for him and hope that, you know, what he was going through, he would find his way back, because I just felt like, you know, Devin needed something.
In the fall of 2022, I was going through a divorce. He made sure that he was there for me. In December of 22, then I kind of found myself in the greatest depth of despair that I probably ever found myself in. So I called John and I said, I need somebody. And he had plans that night, and he changed them, and met me at Starbucks. And I think when we got there, he knew that I couldn't have a conversation in public. So we went out to his truck, and we prayed together. And if I'm being honest, that was probably the first time I prayed in about 10 years after I kind of walked away from my faith. And then beyond that, I think it was later in that month, Jim had extended the offer. He said, you know, if you want to come to church, you can. And through my tears, I looked at him, I said, give me 2 weeks. Because I had things in my mind, or things that I thought I needed to clean up first. 2 weeks went by, and I attended my first service in January, and I don't think I've missed a Sunday since. And then I guess the bottom line is I had 2 encounters with the only explanation that I can give is the presence of Jesus. One of them was on a walk by myself on a day that I just couldn't function, couldn't go to work. And I went on a trail, and before I started walking on that trail, I just said a prayer. Again, what could it hurt? You know, it's just a prayer. I'm already kind of in this mindset anyway. And as I was walking on that trail, I had my AirPods in, and I had the noise canceling on, so you couldn't hear anything but the music. And there was this little creek next to it with a couple rocks about halfway down. And I could hear that water running over those rocks. Noise canceling, you know, music on, I should not have been able to hear that. And I walked by and I looked at it and I was like, that's weird. And I kept walking and I stopped, and I was like, I just prayed for God to show up. And so I walked back and I couldn't hear it. And so I'm sitting there going, you know, was I finally paying attention enough that when I asked for something, I actually received it through the sound of water over rocks.
I remember getting that text. It was a picture of water. I'm like, that's a cool picture, Devin. But then I got the story. I was like, okay, that's powerful, you know, and it reminds me of the still small voice, right? That, like, if you could quiet the noise that we create around us, then you got a chance of hearing that still small constant voice.
From that moment, you know, I started considering getting baptized. I think it was back in April. I text both of you and I just said, hey, I'm thinking about wanting to get baptized. Would you guys baptize me? And of course they said yes. And I think even since that point, our relationship has gotten even significantly stronger.
Can you tell me a little bit about that invite and the feeling that you have going into inviting someone either to church or inviting them into a spiritual moment?
I couldn't or I wouldn't have invited Jim 18, 24 months earlier, because if I would have invited him to church at that point in my life, I would have felt as if I was being hypocritical, because he saw me live in one way, and then all of a sudden I invite him to church, and like the two things didn't match up. So thank God that he took me on my journey of, I guess, rediscovery in my faith. And so when I did feel the Holy Spirit pulling me to say, hey, invite Jim, I didn't have that same conflict, right? It felt like, hey, I'm living it out. He knows this means something to me. I talk about it at work.
Had you noticed that, Jim?
I did. There were times we'd had talks at work about his journey and the things that he was going through, and I think that added to the strengthening of our relationship, because I knew he was being genuine. I knew he was being true to himself. And just for him to have that trust to share that kind of personal information with me, it made me feel a lot stronger about who he was as a person. I was anxious the first time he invited me in and coming in, because I was like, okay, I've done this before, I've done this repetition, going to a church and kind of discovering it. But after going through what I've been through and then being able to see what it's produced in myself and my family, how it's changed John as a husband, as a father, and then being able to ask Devin. I've asked him numerous times, but I was never really pushing about it. It was more of a, hey, Devin, if you want to come to church Sunday, we'll be there for you, And I would drop it maybe once every couple months or something. There'd be a conversation we have, and he'd be struggling with something, and I just say, hey, if you feel up to it, you can come to church, bring the girls, whatever, we'll be there, we'll save you seats. And I just felt like, God just kept telling me at certain times, invite him. And God worked through me to finally get him to come to church, and I'm grateful for that.
Most recently, there was a guy at my work that I could really tell was struggling. Had never really talked faith or anything like that. And so I just asked him one day, I said, hey, I pray in my office every morning, and if you want to join me, feel free. And 5 minutes later, he's at my door. And then it became every single day that he was there. And he actually, the last time, so I've since left, but the last time that we prayed together, I looked up and I could tell something was wrong. And I was like, he really needs prayer. And so I was like, shut the door, let's get this going. And kind of our conversation or whatever level set him for the day. And it's without these guys doing the same thing to me, I would not be able to do the same thing to everybody else.